Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to a new entry for a film I got out to see last week, one which was on my radar to check out for a while. I'd heard it mentioned on a couple podcasts, I think 2 within the same day, and I decided to get out, put some money down for the movie directly by going to the theater, and some money down at concession to help out the theater themselves by checking out The Substance from 2024. Now, this one is starring Demi Moore, who needs no introduction really, as well as Dennis Quaid, who I remember being quite big in the 80s and 90s, but haven't heard that much about recently, and Margaret Peck, who I am mainly familiar with from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but she also had a smaller role in Poor Things later last year. And the synopsis for this film is as follows. A fading celebrity takes a black market drug, a cell-replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. So, as usual, I will go over the vanilla, the top surface, the stuff from the trailers, which won't spoil anything from the film, before later on putting up this banner here, which will be where I get into a little bit deeper into this. You know, just if there's anything I want to mention that may be considered spoilers. But, anyways, to start out, one can see why having Demi Moore in this film was a good choice, seeing as she's lived through some major, retirement of actresses once they hit their mid-30s kinds of issues that we've seen. And even though she's looking great, the character she's playing is, supposed to be replaced as she just turned, I believe, 50 in the film. And this is where Dennis Quaid comes in as this really lecturous, sleazy producer, giving off some major Weinstein kind of vibes here. It's just gross as he's letting her go. But this opportunity comes along for our lead there, having a younger version of herself in a way, which she pursues. But there are catches. So to go through this process with this substance, you can be young for 7 days, and then you need to reset and be your usual self for 7 days. And you need to do that staying on that schedule. Along with that, there are other things like other instructions which need to be followed in order to kind of ensure that that switch is going to happen safely and effectively and there's not going to be any negative side effects. And there's this creepy reminder that they both are you, considering this young version of yourself and your current day version of yourself. It's technically still you, and you have to keep that in mind as there may be almost like battling personalities in a way. But anyways, this is where Margaret Peck comes in, and she's playing kind of like the younger version of Demi Moore's character. And, as this younger version, she's kind of balancing a time, like Margaret versus Demi, getting this new career going, and all the fame and adoration that comes to it, and then having to switch back to being Demi Moore's character for a week. But remember those downsides, those catches, having to keep up with the schedule and so on. Things don't necessarily go smoothly. The overall feelings during this film were very interesting because in one way it was great to see older women in Hollywood being portrayed in a very raw way, which hopefully makes them and their struggles feel a bit more seen. It calls attention to how the industry works. Even though there have been some really great strides in recent years making things a bit better, there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still much further where things need to go. There's this heightened sense of vulnerability within it, seeing Demi Moore's character judging herself in the mirror, not liking what she sees, and having some scenes with this full frontal nudity in a way which is anything but sexual, but more exposing of herself, and just seeing like this raw nerd, that nakedness being both literal and figurative within what's going on in this story as she's going down this path with this substance. There are also some very frustrating parts of her character's journey, as well as Margaret's, as one can't help but to think of them as like these separate characters in a way, and that they're each kind of handling what's happening in their life very differently. And it's difficult for the characters as well as the viewers to just hold on to that reminder that they are both the one character. But though this is hitting Mubi, a service I wasn't very familiar with, I think on Halloween, just some caution before going in if you decide to tune in on Halloween and check it out. First, it's kind of long for the subject matter, clocking in at about 2 hours and 21 minutes, so these dramatic aspects and the slow rise and fall really takes you on a long journey. Second, it is very graphic in various ways. While, from what I recall, the violence really only comes from one major scene in it, in my opinion, the transformation is what really does it. What it takes to use a substance, go through the transformation, keep up with all the tasks you need to do is really gross. only being pushed really like over the edge during the last 30 minutes. Things get really crazy. Think something along the lines of like those very grotesque aspects of a film like Society, perhaps. Body horror to an extent that I found it more nauseating than anything I'd seen in Terrifier 3 when I went to see that a week earlier. But it has the story and performances that makes everything feel balanced with those very grotesque scenes, with those extreme aspects of it, which in this case simply adds to the film in a positive way, which makes it more than worth checking out. Okay, but now that we're done with that surface aspect, let's put up this little banner here. So if interested, check out the film, come back here to this point to watch the rest of it, or if you've already seen it or don't care about spoilers, you can stick around and we dive into just a little bit more detail here, stuff that I didn't want to put during the non-spoiler stuff. But anyways, so for that detail, while I was grossed out by a lot of this, while creepy seeing her kind of mess up with this stabilizer growing, that old finger of hers, or the extreme mismanagement of the process causing the spinal fluid, that like stabilizing juice stuff, to kind of turn black and rotten, that was really disgusting. But it really reminded me of Jared Leto in Requiem for a Dream, showing this addiction taking somebody so far that they'll do anything to keep it going, as she is quite literally being addicted to being young and successful. But that suspense on what will happen to our Matrix, to Demi Moore's character, after being off schedule for so long, was really nerve-wracking, wondering what's going to happen if she keeps pushing this and pushing this and pushing this, as that fluid's getting more and more corrupted and gross. And it really ends up turning, in my opinion, the film into something very heartbreaking, akin to like the Elephant Man at parts, especially some of the really on-the-nose parts about Elephant Man toward the end at the awards show. But even as silly as the fully transformed and corrupted version can look, stumbling down the street with a picture on their face, and how outlandishly gross things get with the blood spraying everywhere at that award ceremony, and tiny bits of her face kind of oozing away, it really, to me, came across as extremely sad and tragic. So I heard some talk about this film on the Colors of the Dark podcast as I was catching up on some older episodes, and then I just heard it mentioned on the Armchair Expert podcast as well, where Dax Shepard noted he's not really much of a horror fan, but from working in the industry, working in Hollywood, he really enjoyed this one, despite it being a bit more gross than he's used to, even when it comes to horror. But anyways, I really felt like this one was a real tragedy that kind of stuck with me more than just like the graphic gore aspects or body horror in this one. Okay, so back to taking down that non-spoiler stuff there. As a recap, really cool concept. Sad seeing a representation of what aging actresses kind of go through in Hollywood. We had some really great performances, which I hope get the notice that they deserve, and this one's more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest little entry here for The Substance from 2024, which at the time of this video is about to be released on Mubi. I thought about getting a trial and checking it out on Halloween when it drops, but I opted for just heading out to the theater anyways, and I was pleasantly surprised with this one. But anyways, that's all I have for this one. If you enjoyed this one, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing and hitting that little bell icon to get notifications for when I put up new content, which is usually 1 to 3 times a week. That's all I got for this one. Thanks for coming by, and I will see you in the next one.